Hello, and welcome to Connected Voices with Ventev. I'm your host, Jared VanAllen, and joining me today, we have Ventev's product manager for our enclosures and some of our mounting systems, Chris Jufer, who I've known for many years. And that's Jafar like in The Lion King, right?
No, it is not, Mr. VanAllen. It is Chris Jufer.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to quit harassing you about that because one of these days, you're probably just going to throttle me, but that's okay. We're here to have fun. So, Chris, last time we got together, we talked about the VenFlex, and you explained to me that you were not going to be showing up today in a Speedo.
Much to your disappointment.
I was hurt by that. So we're not going to get the VenFlex as a bodybuilding pose, but we do absolutely have the VenFlex Mount. We wanted to show it in person and actually do a little showing off of how it works. Now,
Sure.
We discussed previously kind of where it came from and the idea behind it. Maybe we can talk just a little bit about from the basics. Again, what is the VenFlex? What was it designed for originally? And then maybe take us through some of the use case scenarios for it and how we can leverage that.
Certainly. So there was a customer that came to us that had some challenges when it came to getting different mounting brackets for radios, right? So it was one mounting bracket for conduit. It was a separate mounting bracket for wall. You had another one for conduit and a different one for junction box mounting. So we took all that into account and we designed a solution to make it honestly a one mount to meet all needs. So we ended up designing the VenFlex, one of which I have right back here. And you can see we designed this thing in a pretty simple fashion. There's not a whole lot to it, but there's a whole lot that it can do, right? So what you see, your single gang holes right there in the center, right? Your dual gang is out here on the outside, and then it can also do a 4x4 junction box out here in the corners, right? Turning it over here, you can see in the center hole, it's a hole for standard 3/4 inch conduit. There's a hole for 3/8 inch all thread here, and you also have them out here on the corners. So one of many ways to mount this piece of equipment. Now, when it comes to mounting the access point to the bracket, we've leveraged what equates to a 15/16 inch T-bar strip right here in the middle, right? And the majority of access points, indoor access points, are going to include some mounting accommodation for a 15/16 inch T-bar.
A T-bar meaning, of course, that strip in a drop ceiling that holds the ceiling tiles in place, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that. Now you say most. The fact is, I am not aware of a single Wi-Fi access point sold in North America that doesn't come with a T-bar mounting clip option, right? And not just Wi-Fi. There are a lot of other wireless infrastructure devices, radios, that also use that same T-bar or hanging ceiling grid clip or runner, right? So the clip that goes on that runner. So that seems to me that it is kind of for an indoor mount, very widely applicable, not just to Wi-Fi, right?
You're absolutely correct. Anything that leverages that 15/16 inch T-bar, and that's 5 inches of space in there. So if that T-bar clip can fit within that window, it will provide a mounting surface for it.
That is impressive. That is impressive. So I can hang it with an all thread, one or multiple all threads. Okay. Works really good for like those industrial kind of ceilings. Mm-hmm. Now I notice it's small, so that means by the time I put a radio on, it's probably going to cover that mount, or?
Yeah, most times the mount is eclipsed by the face of the radio.
Well, that's good. All right. I can use conduit to mount it as well to hide the cabling coming down. Oh, okay, that's awesome. Sure. I can put it onto the 3 most common electrical box interfaces, especially the metal ones that hold more weight.
Yes, sir.
But that still doesn't kind of answer everything, because it's just kind of that plate and some all thread and a conduit. So that's impressive. Don't get me wrong. That's really impressive that I can mount that many radios on in that many scenarios, but it just really doesn't answer everything for, especially some of the newer Wi-Fi 6E access points, the 6 gigahertz that were the directional access points, right?
Yes, sir.
So what do you got for me there, Chris?
Well, we have another configuration that includes an articulating mount. So I have it in its current configuration. It can actually act as a right angle bracket. So you can actually mount this to a wall, keeping it in the horizontal plane. What this also enables you to articulate the access point in any given direction based on, again, the area you want to cover, right? From a directional perspective, if you have, for example, the Cisco 9166D, that has an integrated directional antenna. This now enables you to point that access point the direction you need it pointed. Some additional value that this mount in particular brings, in addition to a right angle bracket, if you have a vaulted ceiling where, again, the ceiling being slanted and you need to mount something to a ceiling, this enables you to mount it to a vaulted ceiling and it keeps the access point in the horizontal plane.
And it still, from below, seems to hide most of the mount behind the AP.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's interesting. Now, I noticed we talked about another manufacturer. I noticed you had specifically there a particular manufacturer's access point. Who has a decent T-bar bracket setup, but I also know it tends to be a little slower to put up in some instances. I also noticed you had a way that was mounted to this T-bar clip, which was not their mount. Do you want to touch on that, or?
Most certainly, yeah. So
I'm not seeing things, right?
Yeah, no, you're not. Not this time, at least. I can't speak for other times, but but. So this right here is a T-bar clip that we designed specifically for the Aruba access points. And in fact, what I'm going to do, just to illustrate how easily this thing engages and disengages, it simply pops off your access point or pops off of your T-bar clip. You would simply remove the bracket that comes on the back of this access point. You would retain the screws. You would simply use those screws to secure our mount to the back of the Aruba access point. And at that point, it can grab onto either a 9/16 or a 15/16 inch T-bar. So the value there is, again, in most cases, the T-bar clips specifically for Aruba are specific to the size grid that it's attached to, right? So you have to buy a specific 9/16 bracket or a different 15/16 inch bracket. So this covers both of those applications with a single product. Not to mention integration into the grid system is a very easy, quick process.
So aside from the VenFlex, that mount itself, boy, there's a time saver for the implementation crew, right?
Yes, sir.
And I don't have to worry, oh no, I bought the wrong size for these 3 floors that are different.
Yep.
I have that in place. And, what did it take you all of there? By the time you put the 2 screws in, throw it up on the wall or up on the ceiling, excuse me, you're talking a maximum, including putting the 2 screws in, of under a minute. That's pretty impressive.
That's probably climbing up and down the ladder too, and plug in the category cable.
Yeah. Now, from a general perspective, you might not think about that as much, but if you're implementing 500, 600, 1,500, 2,000 access points, that can add up to a lot of money in professional services. Absolutely. So that's pretty interesting. Now, show me how that works on the VenFlex again, would you, Chris? Show me how easy that. So
you got these pieces right here.
Uh-huh.
And if I can get clearly there, so there we go. So there's a little channel that the T-bar clip fits through, and then it locks in place just like so.
That's simple. Now, I noticed one other thing as you're showing that to me, Chris. I noticed that on the articulating mount, that seems to have the same hole pattern we use on the majority of our directional antennas, including our new 6 gigahertz tri-band antennas, right? Am I wrong?
That is, you are not wrong, and that is actually a great segue into the next part of this conversation. So, if you look closely, this T-bar, right underneath this T-bar clip, you're going to see a pattern, a bolt pattern, that is identical to this bolt pattern here. This is this is our mounting bracket for our articulating mount directional antennas, right? So it can pair up directly to this, right? So there's a couple pieces. In addition to becoming an articulating mount for an access point, this also enables you to lower an antenna from a height, leveraging all thread in the corners.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So now what I have is a single mount. So now I get the whole VenFlex thing. So I'll let you off the hook here and not require that you show up in the Speedo next time. But I do understand the whole flexibility part of this now, all joking aside. Being able to mount virtually any Wi-Fi radio indoors, virtually any other kind of device that uses less than 5 inches to mount on a T-bar, and within a reasonable weight limit, right? Similar weight limits to an access point, and be able to mount and point antennas. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. It seems to me that virtually any Wi-Fi or wireless installation would probably require at least a few of these.
I think that's highly reasonable. There's very few access points on the market that would not be able to benefit from the VenFlex Mount.
Great, great. Well, Chris, as always, I appreciate you joining me. Is there anything else we missed? Did we overlook anything?
We actually did. There's a new configuration that we've added to our VenFlex.
Okay, and so we didn't have this last time we talked.
We did not. This we just got parts set up. They should be on our website in the next couple of days. And this is an IV mounting configuration for our VenFlex. So this now enables you to take an integrated access point, mount it to the VenFlex while mounting it to an IV.
Can I mention a picture that was on one of our LinkedIn posts a little while back here? It was taken in a convention center.
You certainly could.
It was an access point hanging from an I-beam, and they used all thread and some steel strips. And then in another implementation, they used black zip ties. Yep. I'm kind of thinking this is the kind of implementation that mount right there with the I-beam implementation capability is something that then, now I can pretty much any implementation I use, I kind of have a need for that.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When it comes to mounting on I-beams, you have your zip ties, you have your plywood platforms up there, or you have some more costly I-beam mounting systems. If you're just mounting a single access point up there, this certainly will get you in the range of where you need to be, and it's a much cleaner, much easier solution, and it's a much more secure solution than some zip ties and duct tape.
Yeah, especially in those areas, of course, that are the lower normal height ceilings. But all right, Chris, as always, it's a pleasure. We went over a lot of information today. If people want more information on this product, of course, they can go to ventevinfra.com. And where would they look on the website?
They could simply type in the word VenFlex in the search box, and they will get all our configurations.
That is absolutely awesome. Again, it's www.ventevinfra.com if you care about that. Chris, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the next cool product you bring out so we can get another one of these discussions up and going. And you know what I'd really like to see at some point?
What's that?
I would really like to see some customer or, value-added reseller implementations of these things and see if they have ideas we haven't thought of in how to utilize these mounts. So thanks again, Chris. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Jared.